What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. And today we got another episode of the Talk Show podcast, whatever you want to call it. I don't care, but it's here. So let's just get right up into it, guys. First off, I want to say thank you, everyone, for supporting everything on the channel, whether it's the Blue Jays franchise, whether it's this. I will be also starting a Giants stream franchise on Twitch, so I will make sure to put the link for my Twitch channel down below. And also, if you got TikTok, make sure you follow my TikTok, man. Make sure you follow my TikTok. I put different kinds of videos up there. I talk about sports, talk about real life shit. I talk about kind of what's going on in my life. So make sure you guys follow it all down there. But let's get into it, guys, before we get sidetracked. So let's just start off. Obviously, we know what the biggest thing that just happened this past week in the NFL was from Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It is the NFL draft. Now, huge storyline obviously coming out of the fact that Shedeur Sanders slided from, the analysts saying that he was a top 5 pick, sliding all the way down to the 5th round pick, where I think if you kind of looked at it, while I'm I'm not a Shedeur Sanders hater whatsoever, I really don't think he is. He's a very talented quarterback, and I will say this. I know a lot of people, particularly of the Caucasian persuasion, don't like him because of the way he carries himself and all of this other shit. I will be completely honest with you. I don't mind the way he carries himself. Do I think he's very much so walking the line of, being maybe a little too confident and it might come off as very cocky? Absolutely. I think that, it's a very fine line to walk between being highly confident and being cocky. It is a very tight line. However, I like the fact that if you're going to put your starting quarterback, I want him to be confident. I want him to believe that he is the best player in the league. Because if you don't believe you're the best player in the league, you're not going to play up to it, man. But the other thing is, he still needs to work hard. This is the NFL. This isn't college. This isn't high school anymore. He still needs to work hard. He needs to earn his starting position. And kind of go from there, because he is in a very interesting situation with Cleveland. I will be getting into all of that. I will kind of be going over that more, because I was going to do winners and losers of this draft. However, I feel like because this draft was so weak, there's only maybe 2, maybe 3 winners, but there's a lot more like mid to then like actual losers. So I'm just going to kind of go through everyone's draft class in this episode. I'm going to try not to make it super, super long, but we're going to go from there. And then I think the other biggest story that I have to talk about is the way that Mel Kiper acted on the NFL draft broadcast, and the way particularly ESPN handled the Shedeur Sanders slide. Well, yes, I will agree that I still think that his slide was absolutely ridiculous, and he probably should have been a day 2 pick. If anything, 2nd to 3rd round. The way that Mel Kiper and ESPN handled it, poor Cam Ward, who was taken number 1 overall, it was completely glossed over because it wasn't Shedeur Sanders. He didn't get an interview up on stage. They cut out the part where he got the call, and you could see the emotion coming out of him. I truly believe. Now, I will say this. I think every quarterback in this draft class, I truly believe that everyone in this draft class, every quarterback that was taken, and any quarterback that's going to be a starter, because there are going to be some that aren't going to be starters, they're going to fall within the 10 to 20 when it comes to like 10 to 20 range of quarterback rankings. I don't think there is a necessarily franchise guy. However, just because you have a quarterback that's in the 10 to 20 range doesn't mean you can't win with said quarterback. The Titans, if they build it correctly, yes, with my drink. If the Titans build correctly, they can win with Cam Ward as a quarterback. It doesn't have to be a high-flying offense. You can have a grit and grind kind of offense. It's perfectly fine. However, I think the way that Mel Kiper and ESPN handled it, Mel Kiper needs to check himself. The way that he's saying for the past 30 years that the NFL has not been able to evaluate quarterbacks, Mel Kiper has been on record saying Jimmy Clausen, Brady Quinn, Zach Wilson, Will Levis, Johnny Manziel, all of these guys were going to be surefire quarterbacks that were going to be superstars, and they all fizzled out. Mel Kiper doesn't even know how to fuck do his job correctly. Mel Kiper is one of the worst draft analysts that's out there, and the only reason why he's known is because he's been doing this shit for 40 years. But the man's had more misses than he has had hits. That's my big issue with him. Plus, I feel like he just doesn't have any sort of accountability either. I think he will sit there like I think with Jimmy Clausen, he said, "Oh yeah, if Jimmy Clausen's not a star, I will retire." The ball's still out there, and Jimmy Clausen was drafted over 15 years ago, roughly about 15 years ago. I don't fucking remember what draft he was in because he was ass. But it's just the fact of like, bro, you're a fucking idiot. Sit back and just admit that you were fucking wrong. It's cool. You know, he has such a big fucking ego, and that's a big issue. You got such a huge fucking ego, and then you're out here calling out GMs and people who do this scouting that you know they do this for a living. You don't. You sit there and watch film in your fucking basement. Like, brother, you don't get paid the big bucks to do this shit. You get paid the big bucks, and then you're going to sit there and you're only going to go off of what you think is right and anybody else is wrong. That's my big issue. But also, being a scout and a GM in the NFL is extremely fucking hard because you can take someone, like, I think the perfect example is look at the Commanders when they were the Redskins. They took RG3, and everybody was like, yes, RG3 is going to be the savior for Washington. Comes out his rookie year, and then bam, next year he gets fucking hurt. Completely shreds his knee up, and they're never the same. The problem is you don't know. You can have people who were drafted in the 6th round be better than the people that were drafted in the 1st round. Look at Tom Brady, for example. And the other thing is that Mel Kiper wanted to sit there and compare Shedeur Sanders to Drew Brees and Dan Marino and fucking Tom Brady, Boomer Esiason. Like, it's like, dude, no. We have to stop with these crazy draft comps, 100%. Because instead of comparing these guys to players that are already in the league, especially quarterbacks, because quarterbacks, they all play the game different. Tom Brady was surgical and understood exactly what he was doing. The dude could break down a fucking defense better than anybody else in the NFL. That is a very rare skill, and you have to put hours upon hours upon hours. And I'm not saying Shedeur Sanders can't be good, because I truly believe he can be. I think he has the talent to be. I just don't. We got to stop, especially with these, you know, with quarterbacks, we gotta stop with the crazy comps. Like, it's one thing to compare a wide receiver. Like, if they wanted to sit here and say, like, oh yeah, Tedero McMillan reminds me of Calvin Johnson, that's fine, because guess what? Size, it's there. I mean, they're both big body, big catch radius wide receivers. That's fine to compare skill position players, but quarterback is the hardest position to judge because they could come in and they could just get into a slump and never recover from it. Offensive lineman's another really easy one too because there's not as many traits with that. Quarterback, the big thing is there's so many traits for what goes into being a professional quarterback that it is hard to sit there and be like, yes, this guy's going to be the next Tom Brady or this guy's going to be the next Patrick Mahomes. It's so difficult. But before we get on, yes, like I said, this is an overall weak draft class. So I'm just going to go through, break down every single draft class that was in here. And as we go, I'm going to tell you what I think as the teams with the best draft classes in this. All right. So let's just get started. Let's get the nicotine pouch out and let's just get this rolling. So let's start with the Arizona Cardinals. We'll go alphabetical order in this. I will say this. I think the Cardinals have one of the best drafts in the NFL this year. They killed it. Walter Nolan, Will Johnson, Jordan Burch, Cody Simon, Denzel Burke, Hayden Connor, and Keaton Crawford. If I'm pronouncing that name wrong, please let me know. I mean, honestly, and this could just be me being very biased of Ohio State, their first 5 picks in this draft were phenomenal. I think Denzel Burke is a tremendous corner. He just needs to work on his penalties. That was the biggest thing last year for him, is that his penalties were rough. Cody Simon is going to be a reliable tackler for them. Jordan Burch coming off the edge, very good edge rusher from Oregon. Will Johnson only fell because of injury concerns with his knee, but he is a shutdown corner. And Walter Nolan was someone that I would have loved the Eagles to trade up to get. It just would not happen. That's a great stalwart in the middle of their defensive line. When you come to round 6 and 7, obviously just drafting for depth at that point, and I don't think they did that bad. You got a Texas lineman. Texas had a pretty good line last year. And then kind of, I don't know too much about Keaton Crawford. So I would say probably more or less a depth guy back there with Budda Baker. Yeah, I mean, they did very, very well. The Atlanta Falcons, so I'm going to say this with the Falcons. I like the way that they approached this draft. Jalen Walker in the first round, JPJ, James Pierce Jr. in the first round when they traded back up. My biggest thing is that the fact that they traded away next year's first round pick to get James Pierce Jr. I don't like that at all. But they did go after edge players, which is great. They have not had a great pass rush recently. I love the fact that they did approach the edge rusher position. You gave up your second, so obviously you did not make another pick there. They did not pick that until the third round, where they picked up Xavier Watts. I'm a huge fan of Xavier Watts. I know a lot of Eagles fans wanted him, and they were kind of pissed that we got who we did at safety. But I am a big fan of Xavier Watts. Him and Jesse Bates are going to be an awesome safety duo in a couple of years. Billy Bowman, safety from Oklahoma, another really good pickup. I like that. They went a lot more on the defensive side because I think their offense is set at this point. You got yourself a really good wide receiver, number one. You got a secondary option with Kyle Pitts through the passing game. And then you have one of the most underrated and best young running backs in the league in Bijan Robinson. So I like where they're sitting with everything. And then they got Jack Nelson from Wisconsin. It's never a bad thing to draft the Big Ten offensive linemen. We know them big boys up front. They always do really well. I would say the Falcons fell right in the middle. I would put them at about 15, right where their first round pick was. I don't think their draft was terrible. I also don't think that their draft was exceptional. So I would definitely put them in about the middle. Not a bad draft, though. The Ravens, Jesus fucking Christ, like always, Baltimore killed the draft. Baltimore, one of the winners of this draft, easily. There might actually be more winners now that I'm looking at than what I think, but I think just breaking all of these down is just going to be really fun. Malachi Starks, I wanted him as an Eagle. A Georgia defensive player. The fact that we only got one in this draft is crazy to me. Howie Roseman went a different way. I love the pickup of Malachi Starks for them. Him and Kyle Hamilton in the back end is a nasty duo. Mike Green. So Mike Green, I think, was one of the most polarizing prospects in this draft due to the SA allegations that he had dating back from high school. But just the video of him getting the call, the emotion coming out of him, I'm sure he probably thought his professional career was absolutely tanked after that. While I do not agree with what he did, and if as a football player, the dude was a top 15 talent, and they got him at 59. They killed that pick. I love that pick. I wanted him as an Eagle, but knowing of the former allegations, that obviously was not going to happen. It just wasn't. Tackle from LSU, Emory Jones, getting big on the offensive line. They know how to develop offensive linemen. Linebacker Teddy Buchanan from California. Don't know too much about him. I love this pick in the 5th round by Baltimore. Carson Vincent from Alabama A&M. Small school guy, but could probably be really, really good. Like I said, Baltimore knows how to develop offensive linemen. I'm not worried about him at all. Bilal Coney from Western Michigan. Again, Baltimore just knows how to develop talent. So every one of these guys has a good possibility to become very good in the future. The biggest surprise is in the 6th round. So Baltimore had 5 picks in the 6th round. That's just this. And they drafted every single one. They took a player at every single one of them. They loaded up and got deep. Tyler Loop, I guess they're ready for life after Tucker. There you go. I love this pick. Getting a weapon for Lamar, LaJohntay Wester from Colorado. Good wide receiver. I like that. Aeneas Peebles from Virginia Tech at D tackle. He's going to be good. Robert Longerbeam. I love that Baltimore be picking up guys with the craziest names sometimes too. Love that pick from Rutgers, from East Coast. I love it. And then they got another LSU offensive lineman in Garrett Dellinger. Love the pickup. Like I said, they know how to develop offensive linemen. Baltimore, one of the winners of this draft easily. Buffalo. Now, I'm a lot higher on Buffalo's draft than what I think a lot of people are. There is a couple of things that I could critique with their draft. I wish they would have gotten another offensive weapon for Josh Allen that wasn't a tight end or a 7th round wide receiver. I wish they would have taken someone higher up in the draft as an offensive weapon, because we can't have Josh doing everything by himself, man. I mean, it's crazy. But I do like the way that they attacked a lot on defense this year, knowing that defense was a slight issue. I do like how they attacked this draft. Maxwell Hairston, I would have loved him in Philly. Quick guy, great personality guy. If you guys watch the draft, he was congratulating everybody that was picked in front of him. He had the closest seat to the stage and making sure that he dapped up everybody. TJ Sanders, defensive tackle from South Carolina, pairing him with Ed Oliver is going to be disgusting. Landon Jackson, the baby bottom. I love that pickup of Landon Jackson. Bendy, very athletic, tall edge rusher from Arkansas. Defensive tackle, Deion Walker. I love that. Again, building up that interior offensive line. Jordan Hancock from Ohio State. Again, my bias, but Jordan Hancock is also another very good corner from Ohio State right now. This is their first offensive pick, and they didn't wait it until the fifth round. Jackson Hawes from Virginia Tech, just keeping it there with their solid tight end group that they have. Dorian Strong from Virginia Tech, cornerback, good pickup. Chase Lunt from Connecticut, small school offensive lineman, but could be very good in the future. Obviously, I hope every one of these guys becomes good. And then Caden Prather from Maryland. Maryland was a weird offensive team last year. They start off well and then they shit the bed the rest of the way. Like I said, I like Buffalo's pick. I'm gonna put them closer to 10 probably when it comes to how I think they did. They could have done better. They could have done worse. I wish they would have attacked offensively a little bit more, just because I feel like you got to get weapons for Josh Allen. Oh, but yeah, that's kind of my take on the whole Buffalo on the Bills draft class. Carolina Panthers. Okay, Panthers, I think absolutely killed this draft, man. I mean, you went defensive, you went offensive. I mean, you're helping out Bryce Young. I hate the fact that they only gave their day one pick, Teteroa McMillan, a C. Why? You gave a really good wide receiver to a young quarterback who showed promise towards the end of the year last year. You gave him a big body, high catch radius kind of wide receiver. I love that pick by Carolina in the first round. I was shocked that they went him. However, is a great pick. Give Bryce Young his guy. You're good. Edge, Nick Scorton, love the pick right there. Edge, Princely Umamielen, love the pick right there. You basically now have replaced Brian Burns at this point, and that's terrific. Scorton can be a very good edge rusher. Princely Umamielen, I'm a big fan of his. I think he is going to be very good. You got a good depth running back, and honestly might be running back number 2, depending on how Brooks comes back from his torn ACL last year. And Trevor Etienne, if he can get it together. Another Ohio State guy. I feel like Carolina loves their Ohio State guys. Lathan Ransom, I love that pickup. Again, I might be very biased, but that's national champion Lathan Ransom. Awesome safety, good guy. I like that. Cam Jackson from Florida, give you another good interior defensive lineman. Mitchell Evans from Notre Dame. Death, taxes, Notre Dame, Stanford, and Iowa putting out good tight ends. It is a guarantee, bro. I love the pickup of Mitchell Evans from Notre Dame. And then wide receiver, you start the draft with the wide receiver, you end the draft with the wide receiver. And personally, you got the second best wide receiver on Colorado in Jimmy Horn Jr. You got yourself a wide receiver core now with Thielen. And then they recently just signed Hunter Renfrow. They did a good job. Jordan Travis, oh my God, as I'm recording this, Jordan Travis just announced his retirement from the NFL after just one season. Wow. But anyways, Carolina, one of the biggest winners of the draft. Bryce Young is a huge winner. Like I said, I love the pickup of Mitchell Evans. You're going to have a good starting tight end for a good period of time now. Teteroa McMillan and Jimmy Horn rounding out that receiving core, because we know Thielen's getting older. Just let Jimmy, because Ted's going to obviously start. Thielen will be in the slot. And then, Ted will start opposite of Leggett. And then Jimmy Horn Jr., let him eat up all of the information that he can from Thielen. And I love Carolina's draft. I think it is a terrific draft. You went defense, you went offense, you balanced it very well. Love their draft. The Bears. I love the Bears. I love the Bears draft right now. I think they did really well with the guys that they picked. They went super heavy on helping out Caleb Williams. Colson Loveland, however, I don't think he should have been the first tight end off the board. However, I feel like he fits the scheme better than Tyler Warren would. Loveland is more of your downfield kind of tight end, where Tyler Warren is more of your underneath kind of guy. Let him break some tackles, but Loveland's more of the field stretching tight end, which I love that pickup. Him and Kmet are like. The thing is, Tyler Warren's very close to the skill set that Cole Kmet has. So having one guy that can stretch the field and another guy that can stay underneath, I love that combination for the Bears. Awesome job. Luther Burden the third. If you guys remember me talking about him, I wanted him to be an Eagle. I love the pickup of Luther Burden the third. I think his after the catch ability is going to fit so well there with Adunze, with DJ Moore. I just think they're going to be a fun offense to watch next year with Ben Johnson there. Ozzy Trapilo from Boston College, offensive tackle. He could be good. He could be good. It's a second round pick. Shamar Turner, defensive tackle from Texas A&M, building up that interior of that defensive line. Gervin Dexter now having someone to run with. I love that pickup. Linebacker Ruben Hippolyte II from Maryland. I'm going to be honest, I don't know too much about him. I was going to say Zach. Za Frazier. One terrific name. I love that first name. And if that's a nickname, that is a fire nickname. I love that. Good. I don't know much about him. He's a small school guy, so I don't know.
This break is brought to you by Adobe Photoshop, featuring the amazing new text to image. Now you can create just by typing a prompt. So go ahead.
Sorry about that. 6'3". Good God, they got themselves a tall one. Alrighty. That is an awesome pickup. That's up there with that Tariq Woolen kind of pickup. Luke Newman, Michigan State offensive lineman, love it. And Kyle Monungai to round out the draft. Powerful, hard runner. Reminds me a lot of Isaiah Pacheco, just with not the top end speed, but hard runner out of Rutgers. They know how to put out some hard running backs. I love it. The Bengals. Oh boy, I'm gonna get some shit for this one. I do not like the Bengals draft. I don't like the Bengals draft whatsoever. I understand the kind of the way of going with this. You got two offensive linemen. You went more heavy on defense, but like Shamar Stewart, he didn't really have the production. That's my only thing with him. He didn't have the production at Texas A&M last year. Demetrius Knight Jr., good athletic linebacker, not bad. Dylan Fairchild, offensive lineman from Georgia. That's a good pickup. Barrett Carter from Clemson. Clemson knows how to put out some good players, so I'm sure he'll probably be pretty damn decent. It was a deep draft at everything other than quarterback in this one. So there's a lot of guys that definitely went later than they normally would have. Jalen Rivers from Miami. I don't know too much about him. I know Taj Brooks was pretty good at Texas A&M or Texas Tech last year. 6'6", 319. That's a beefy boy up there for the offensive line for the Bengals. I'm not a huge fan of the Bengals draft. They could have went a little bit better. However, it's not terrible. I don't think anyone really hit a terrible draft in this one, to be honest with you. The Browns. Mason Graham. Good pick. Traded back with the Jaguars. Jaguars ended up trading him to get Travis Hunter. However, the Browns did get an extra second-round pick and a first-round pick from next year. Good job by the Browns. While I think Mason Graham was a bit of a reach, however, not bad to put someone in the middle there with Myles Garrett. I like it. Carson Schlesinger, yeah. I can't believe that Jordan Travis is retiring. With the first pick of the second round, Carson Schlesinger, not a bad pickup whatsoever. I don't mind that pick at all. I think that was a really good pickup for them. A good, solid linebacker. Running back Quinshon Judkins, who I felt was the third best running back in the class. Him and Travion Henderson were my two, were 3A and 3B. You could make an argument that Quinshon's better than Omarion Hampton. However, I think where Quinshon went is a good spot for him. Harold Fannin Jr., I'm super high on Harold Fannin Jr. I really, really like him. Wanted the Eagles to get him for future of our tight end position, but he'll be good with Njoku. They might be preparing to possibly lose Njoku at some point, so that's not bad. Dylan Sampson at running back. You can run a two-headed monster with Sampson and Judkins. And obviously, as you guys know, I skipped the other third-round pick, Dylan Gabriel. Heisman finalist last year, led Oregon to an undefeated season until they faced Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. Not a bad quarterback. And then they got Shedeur Sanders with their fifth-round pick. I think the Browns did very well in this draft, all things considered, along with recouping a first-round pick from next year. I do really like their draft this year. And Shador is, I think he could win the starting quarterback job, but also do you throw him into the fire instantly? I don't know. You never know what to think with Cleveland. However, I do think they were one of the best drafting teams this year. Dallas, people are giving them an A minus. I would probably say they're a high B, all because they reached on Tyler Booker at 12. Like, y'all are just out here building the Tyler offensive line. All of this to just get absolutely mollywopped by the Eagles defensive line twice a year. But Tyler Booker, and then they got the one guy that I wanted the Eagles to get, and Donovan Ezaraku from Boston College, Siobhan Revel Jr., cornerback that tore his ACL last year. God, I hope he plays. But I mean, Dallas could have possibly wasted a pick, but Siobhan Revel, if he is good, might not be a bad player. Jaden Blue, you got yourself a running back. There you go. Shamar James, linebacker from Florida. Ajani Cornelius, offensive tackle from Oregon. Jay Toya from UCLA. Phil Maffa from Clemson. And then Tommy Akinbisote from Maryland. I'm going to give their draft probably like a B plus, right outside the top 10. Nah, you know what? They'll probably be at like 10. They didn't do bad. They didn't do terrible. People just always overrate Dallas a lot because, that's the way that the national media is. The Denver Broncos. Okay, so the Broncos are an interesting one. They're another one that kind of just right in the middle for me. Jahdae Barron, not a bad pick whatsoever. I do think he is a good player. However, you had a Marion Hampton right there. You need a running back, and you went Jahdae Barron. Not, like I said, not bad, but I understand their way of thinking. You got RJ Harvey out of UCF in the second round, Pat Bryant out of Illinois in the third, Savion Jones out of LSU, Q Robinson out of Alabama, Jeremy Crawshaw from Florida, a punter in the sixth round, and Caleb Lawner from Utah in the seventh. Not a crazy draft. They're definitely in the middle, but towards the back end of the middle. Not a huge fan of their draft class, to be honest with you guys. All right. The Detroit Lions. I think had a pretty damn good draft. They had a good draft. I'm not going to lie. Tyleik Williams from Ohio State. Yes, love that pick. Tate Ratledge from Georgia offensive lineman, going to be good. Isaac TeSlaa, white boy out of Arkansas, love it. Miles Frazier from LSU, offensive guard. This, I think, their sixth round pick could really be the biggest sleeper. Ahmad Hassanine from Boise State. I like that pickup. Dan Jackson, safety out of Georgia, and then Dominic Lovett out of Georgia, wide receiver. They're taking a page out of the Eagles book. They drafted 3 Georgia players this draft. Not a bad draft though. Solid, but not that bad. Not bad. The Packers. Oh boy, the Packers. They had themselves a pretty solid draft. I'm not gonna lie. Matthew Golden in the first round. Hallelujah. You get yourself a potential number 1. Finally, offensive tackle, Anthony Belton. I'm pretty sure this dude's huge, if I remember correctly. I don't know, only 6'6". That's about a guard size, big tackle. So Anthony Belton, Savion Williams, huge fan of, big wide receiver, high catch radius, 6'4", 220. Big fan of that pick. Baron Sorrell out of Texas. Colin Oliver out of Oklahoma State. Warren Brinson out of Georgia, D tackle. Micah Robinson out of Tulane, and then John Williams out of Cincinnati. They did a fantastic job. You address the offense, you address the defense, very balanced. I love that. I love their draft. The Texans. So Texans traded back on another first round pick next year. And I mean, they went heavy on the offense. Round 2 with the Falcons pick, Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. Actually, that's a Giants pick. My fault. Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. Big body, catch radius kind of guy. Really good guy to pair with Nico Collins. Big fan of that. Ariante Irsay out of Minnesota. I'm pretty sure this might have been the offensive guard that I was looking at. Nope. Yep. 6'6" again. Again, still big dude. Jalen Noel out of Iowa State. 5'10", slot receiver. Basically a Tank Dell replacement because he's not playing this year. Jalen Smith out of USC, Woody Marks out of USC, Jalen Reed out of Penn State, backup quarterback for CJ Stroud, Graham Mertz out of Florida, Keontae Hamilton out of Rutgers, and then Luke Leachy out of Iowa. They got themselves probably potentially a steal at tight end there because they got themselves an Iowa tight end. Not a bad draft, very more front loaded than it is back loaded, but a very solid draft by the Texans. I like what they did. The Jaguars. Now, let me put it this way. Outside of losing a first round pick from next year, I feel they absolutely crushed this draft. Hell of a draft. Let's get into it. Travis Hunter, two-way player out of Colorado with the number 2 pick they traded up for. Nailed it. Caleb Ransall, nailed it. Wyatt Millum, offensive guard. I want to say, I think this is a big boy too. Yeah, 6'6 and a half, 313. That's a big boy right there. Bayshaw Tootin ran the fastest 40 at the combine this year. Awesome. Jack Kaiser, good pickup. Jalen McLeod, good pickup. Rayon Lane the third out of Navy. Salute. Jonah Monheim out of USC, and then LaQuint Allen out of Syracuse. I wanted LaQuint Allen on the Eagles. He's going to be a good running back there for them. 6 foot, 204. That's a beefy running back. Bayshaw Tootin slash and dash. LaQuint Allen runs hard. Solid draft from Jacksonville. I loved what they did. Kansas City, as much as I hate to say it, the rich get richer. And I'm going to say the same thing with Philadelphia too, because it was the same thing. Offensive tackle. They attacked their offensive tackle and potentially got a stalwart at offensive tackle. This guy would have went higher if he did not get hurt last year in the Oregon game. Josh Simmons, that's a stalwart defensive tackle or offensive tackle for them. Protect Patty Mahomes. Omar Norman Lott from Tennessee, good pickup. Ashton Gelate from Louisville, good pickup. Noel Williams from California, good pickup. Jalen Royals out of Utah State. They're going to draft some unknown wide receiver and is going to be the next Tyreek Hill. Like, they do a really good job at getting their shit. Jeffrey Bossa, love that pick in the 5th round. Awesome pick. Brashard Smith from SMU, wide receiver, running back hybrid kind of thing, which that's a weapon for Andy Reid. Good pickup, man. Good pickup, but they're gonna do everything. They're going to do everything that they need to do, and they're going to continue to be good. Omar Norman Lott, I like this comparison a lot. They said being undersized, he is going to be perfect, though, to place next to Chris Jones. Let him learn everything that they need to get him, and they'll be good. Las Vegas Raiders, another team that I think absolutely murdered this draft. Ashton Ginty out of Boise State. Jack Besh out of Tennessee. Darian Porter out of Iowa State. Caleb Rogers out of Texas Tech. Charles Grant out of William & Mary. Dante Thornton Jr. out of Tennessee. Tonka Hemingway. Can I just say the name Tonka for a defensive tackle is one of the best names I have ever heard. I love that. The dude is built like a truck, and he's named after one too. 6'3", 284. What a beast. They got JJ Paju out of Ole Miss. Tommy Mellett, wide receiver out of Montana State. Cam Miller, quarterback out of North Dakota. I actually think Tommy Mellett might be a wide receiver quarterback kind of hybrid kind of thing. And Cody Linderberg, a linebacker. So the one thing you really have to view with this is that they have a lot of faith in Geno Smith. They did not take they did take a quarterback in the 6th round. However, they got to be thinking, all right, we're going to pass on a quarterback this year. If we don't do well, that's perfectly fine because it's a stronger quarterback class next year. I like the way that they thought. I think the Browns should have taken the same approach this year, but I also had Shedeur Sanders mocked to Vegas throughout everything. I thought Shedeur just fits Vegas, big personality, flashy city, flashy player. I thought it was the perfect fit for them. But hey, it is what it is. That's why I don't get paid the big bucks to do this shit. Chargers, I think they had themselves a very solid draft as well. Like I said, a lot of very solid to good drafts that there were out here. Omarion Hampton, you addressed the need. You got Omarion Hampton and now Najee Harris. Great 1-2 punch for running backs there. Trey Harris out of Mississippi. or out of Ole Miss. I think this is the taller of the wide receivers. Yeah, the 6'2", 205. A.J. Brown-ass build right there. Good pickup for the Chargers. Could potentially step in and maybe be the number one. They have Jamari Caldwell out of Oregon, and Oregon was a really good team. He's going to be a really good player. Kyle Kennard out of South Carolina. Keandre Lambert-Smith out of Auburn. Aronde Gatson II out of Syracuse was probably the fourth best tight end on the board, and they got him in the fifth. That is an awesome pickup for them. I love that pickup. They don't really have a big name tight end, so that is an awesome get. Branson Taylor out of Pitt. RJ Mickens out of Clemson, and Trickweezy Bridges. No, dude, that's a great name, man. That's a crazy but great name at the same time. Trickweezy. Trickweezy? I'm gonna say Trickweezy. That's a great name, man. I love that name right there. Los Angeles Rams. They didn't have a first round pick, but they traded back, got a pick from the Falcons next year. That's who the Falcons traded with. That's who the Falcons got. Terrence Ferguson, tight end out of Oregon. I'm so glad he did not go to Kansas City, because if he would have, I would have punched myself in the face, because he would have been the perfect replacement for Travis Kelce. Josiah Stewart out of Michigan. Jaquez Hunter out of Auburn. Ty Hamilton out of Ohio State. Chris Paul Jr., not related to the point guard, but out of Ole Miss, and Kanata Mumpfield out of Pitt. Solid draft. Very solid draft. You recouped a first rounder from next year. They actually are in a very good situation, because also what they could do is, depending on where that Falcons pick falls, and if Stafford decides to retire or really regresses in his play, you package your 2 first rounds and attempt to move up, and you could get yourself your next franchise quarterback. Rams played it very, very smart. I like it. The Dolphins. Dolphins had a very interesting one. I mean, the fact that there was a Dolphins beat writer that didn't know who the hell Jonah 7IA was. Like, come on, bro. Do better. But they had themselves a very good draft. Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle, replaces Christian Wilkins. Jonah 7IA slides right in to help protect Tua. Jordan Phillips out of Maryland, good defensive tackle. I like that. Jason Marshall out of Florida, good pick right there. Dante Trader Jr., really good pickup out of Maryland. Ollie Gordon II, I did not realize he fell this far. Terrific pickup for the Dolphins. If he could get back to his 2023 form, fire. Quinn Ewers, they got themselves a protection plan in case Tua gets hurt. I'm not going to pronounce this last name, because I'm not going to get flagged on this, and I'm not going to get fried on this either. We're just going to say Zeke, the DT, the defensive tackle out of Georgia Tech. Not a bad draft. I like it. They went really solid. Again, a very balanced draft class. I like when teams balance out their draft unless they are very needy on one side of the ball. Very good draft class by Miami. Minnesota had another very good draft as well. I like what they did here. Donovan Jackson, guard, first round, good pickup. Ty Felton out of Maryland. This wide receiver class was interesting, because I feel like some of these guys weren't crazy good, but they went super high. Ty Felton, he could be better than what I thought. Excuse me if he's better than what I thought. Tyron Ingram Dawkins out of Georgia. Georgia defensive player, going to be good. Kobe King out of Penn State, good pickup. I like it. Gavin Bartholomew out of Pittsburgh. So they had a very solid draft. They didn't have many picks. They only had like 5 picks in this draft. They made do with what they had. No second, no fourth, no seventh. So they did pretty well. New England. I think New England had themselves one of the best drafts in the league. Will Campbell, perfect pickup, help protect your young quarterback. Travion Henderson, who I think skill set wise was better than Quinshon Judkins. However, I feel as a pure runner, Quinshon was a little bit better. But Travion Henderson out of Ohio State. Kyle Williams out of Washington, very good deep threat. I like that pickup. Jared Wilson, another Georgia offensive lineman. He going to be good. Craig Woodson out of California, good pickup. Joshua Farmer out of Florida State, good pickup. Braden Swinson out of LSU, good pickup. 6th-round kicker, Andreas Borgales out of Miami, pretty good pickup. I don't know what their kicker situation is looking like right there. Marcus Bryant offensive tackle out of Missouri. SEC offensive lineman, always going to be fairly good. Julian Ashby, Vanderbilt long snapper. This is the most Bill Belichick draft I've ever seen in the 6th and 7th round. And then Kobe Minor out of Memphis who was Mr. Irrelevant. But a kicker and a long snapper? Vrabel, are you channeling Billy Boy? Like, what are we? That's a crazy, crazy 6th and 7th, 2 6th and 7th round picks. But I love it. That's what makes New England so interesting. New Orleans Saints. Oh God. Oh, Kellen, what are we doing, buddy? So I want to say I like their first round pick, Kelvin Banks at 9. And then in your second round, you take Tyler Shuck. Apparently, they really liked him due to his size and his arm ability. I don't think it was terrible, but you know what? I feel like it was probably another place they could have went quarterback wise. Not saying it should have been Shedeur Sanders. However, I am saying I just feel like there's probably another position they could have went with somebody else quarterback wise. Vernon Broughton from Texas D lineman. I feel like they're normally good. Jonas Sanker, aka Jalen Hurts lookalike, in the third round. That's crazy. Danny Stutzman, solid linebacker. Love that pick. Quincy Riley out of Louisville, good pick. Devin Neal out of Kansas, dynamic running back, could easily replace Kamara if they let him go. Maliki Mataveo, out of tight end out of UCLA, could be pretty good. And Fadil Diggs out of Syracuse could be pretty good. Solid, not great. Easy B minus. I like where NFL Network, NFL.com has their draft ranked. New York Giants, they're giving them an A because they think every pick that they had was good. And honestly, I kind of agree with them. Outside of the Jackson Dart pick. However, Abdul Carter, I loved Abdul Carter coming out of this draft. Obviously, a lot of us Eagles fans were hoping that we got him, but we all kind of knew it was very unrealistic. It just is what it is. Abdul Carter, number 3, love the pick. Jackson Dart, they traded back up into the first round with Houston. Not a bad pickup. However, I don't see it from them. He probably would have been available when they were going to pick anyways. But maybe the next Eli Manning. Who knows? Darius Alexander out of Toledo. They saw what Q did last year for the Eagles. Not a bad pickup. Cam Scatterbo out of Arizona. I love that. Love him as a running back. Easily the 5th best back on the board. I love that. They got themselves a very powerful runner, and I hate the fact that we got to play him. Marcus Bowe out of Purdue. Thomas Fadone, the 2nd out of Nebraska, and Corey Black out of Oklahoma State. Very solid draft. I think they did really well. The Giants at least did not fuck this up like they fucked up their last offseason. So, not bad. New York Jets. Haha. Let's get into this. They give them a B+. I'm probably going to be about a B. I don't think it's as good as what they wanted to say. However, I do think they've made a lot of very solid picks, especially their day 2 and early day 3 picks. Okay, so Armand Membo out of Missouri. Honestly, I will be completely honest, I did not know too much about this guy. I really did not. But from what I've seen, he's pretty good. Mason Taylor out of LSU, good pickup. Azariah Thomas, very good pickup. I like him as a corner. Arian Smith out of Georgia, very good pickup. Malachi Moore out of Alabama, good pickup. Francisco Mauigoa out of Miami, good pickup. And then don't know too much about Tyler Barron, but basically their 2nd to 5th round picks, I feel were all really good. Their 1st round pick, they maybe could have went a different direction. However, I'm not upset with their vision. And I mean, once you get later in the draft, you kind of just start drafting for depth anyways. All right. My Philadelphia Eagles, your Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, like always, Howie Roseman did the damn thing and did very well at this. Jahad Campbell fell to 31. We traded up and got him. Good pickup. I love it. Versatile linebacker, can play outside, can play inside. He can rush. He can do a little bit of everything. Andrew Makuba, love the pickup. People are giving that a B. I don't see it as a B pickup. That's easily an A. I think the Jahad Campbell pick is an A+, and I think our day 3 is a solid A. So I think we're about an A for our draft class this year. Makuba, good. He does have some tackling issues. However, we can get that shit straight. So did CJ last year. He did miss some tackles. Still love CJ. I will, but he did miss some tackles. He could be a little sloppy in coverage every once in a while. It just is what it is, though. I mean, you're gonna get that from a back end kind of guy. I love the Makuba pickup. If we do decide to sign Simmons, awesome. That would be great. Give Makuba a mentor a little bit, but I think Makuba can easily step in and be a day one starter for us. Ty Robinson, the white gorilla, I love it. I absolutely love that pickup. 6'6" defensive tackle. The Eagles also today just picked up the 5th-year option on Jordan Davis, so he is going to be back for at least another 2 this year and the following year. Howie has himself a monstrous interior with Robinson, Davis, and Carter now. Mac McWilliams is really the only pick I did not like. UCF was not a great team last year. They weren't good defensively. However, hey man, prove me wrong. I hope he's good with the Eagles. I really do. I really do. He'll be like our 5th corner probably, just because obviously Coop, Ricks, and Ringo. I mean, those are our top 4. So he'll be like our 5th corner, maybe 6th. Forgot we have Adoree Jackson too. So he's going to be really far down the depth chart. I just don't think a 5th round pick with what he is and what we drafted him as was a smart pick. That was probably the only pick that I really disagree with Howie with. But other than that, absolutely killed the rest of them. Smail Mondon Jr., versatile, very athletic linebacker from Georgia. Keep up the Georgia defense. The Alabama offense were basically a full SEC team. Drew Kendall from Boston College. All right, I'm cool. I'm cool with that. I really am. Kyle McCord out of Syracuse. As an Ohio State fan, I should hate Kyle McCord. I really don't. I think that he had a rough year with Ohio State, however, put up fairly good numbers, and I'm not a fan of him sneaking out on the bowl game like he did. However, he did put up crazy numbers last year in Syracuse, and I'm happy we're bringing him home to Philadelphia. Miles Satan out of Michigan, an absolute monstrous sized offensive lineman, 6'7", 327. My man, you are huge. And then Cameron Williams, 6'6", 317. My brother in Christ, Howie. My man's building the Great Wall of Philadelphia with their offensive line. This is ridiculous, bro. Absolutely ridiculous. The man knows how to find late round offensive linemen, and it is disgusting. They're going to get to Stoughton University, and they're going to play incredible. I already know it. And then Antoine Powell-Ryland, who even as a 6th rounder had 15 sacks last year. APR could be the steal of the draft if he plays that well. I mean, we could be seeing another Jalix Hunt kind of situation with him, where maybe at first he doesn't get a lot of burn, but maybe due to an injury or just someone's not performing, he steps in and he takes off. I mean, I hope it doesn't happen, but I also I would love to see us run a crazy rotation of pass rushers because we have the depth to do it now. Jahad Campbell can rush the passer. I mean, honestly, I think the Jahad Campbell pick was what it was because of the Kobe Dean potentially not being ready, and only about 50% of players come back from that injury to full go. So I think the Jahad Campbell very much so is a Zach Bond clone. You have 2 of them patrolling in the middle of the field. Brother, teams are going to have it out. And plus, Jahad Campbell lit up Jackson Dart in college. But no, I'm a huge fan of the Eagles draft class. A's all around. The Jahad Campbell picks an A+. We are at an A easily for our draft class. I mean, how we killed it again, even with the 32nd pick. It's how he's a fucking mastermind, dude. I love it. Steelers, solid A draft as well. I love what they did. Derek Harmon. Let's get a little somber real quick. Let me get a swig. If you guys did not hear about what happened with Derek Harmon, his mom passed away just hours after he was drafted. From what was the happiest day of his life to probably one of the lowest and most depressing days of his life in just a couple of hours. But she stuck around to see her son get drafted, and I hope he has a terrific career in Pittsburgh. Caleb Johnson, a running back out of Iowa. Love that pick. I forgot Caleb Johnson was even in this draft. So, yeah, I mean, he was a dog. Jack Sawyer, love Captain Jack out of Ohio State. Yaya Black out of Iowa. Will Howard, could potentially step in and be a day one starter for Pittsburgh. That's insane to think of. Carson Bruner out of Washington and Dante Kent out of Central Michigan. They had a really solid draft, well rounded. I love that. I love their draft in general. San Francisco, I think they had a very solid draft as well. A lot of teams did really well. We have one, two, three, four, five more teams to go through. So we got Michael Williams, we got Alfred Collins, we got Nick Martin, we got Upton Stout, CJ West, Jordan Watkins, Jordan James, Marquise Siegel, Curtis Rourke, Connor Colby, and Junior Bergen. All right, so Rourke's going to be a backup easily. Collins could easily. I think Martin, Collins, and Williams are all going to be starters probably day one. And Upton Stout could be good, but I think it'll be probably about a year or so until we see him really get going. But I mean, solid draft, good. They got a good running back. Not terrible. Very solid draft. Seattle, they took my draft crush this year. Gray Zabel, Nicky Mamore, Elijah Arroyo, Jalen Milrow, Riley Mills, Torrey Holton, Robbie Oots, Bryce Capaldua, Damian Martinez, Mason Richmond, and Ricky White the third. So, as you guys know, I'm a huge fan of Nicky Mamore, height, weight, speed kind of player, and DK Metcalf at safety. Gray Zabel, great pickup from North Dakota State. Jalen Milrow, if Sammy D fucks up, that Jalen Milrow will be their quarterback by the end of the year. Torrey Holton, love that pickup. I was hoping the Eagles would have gotten Horton, but it is what it is. Damian Martinez, power runner. I like that pickup. Him with K9, good pickup. Tampa Bay. So Tampa Bay had a very interesting draft. A lot of people, they kind of viewing them as like a high, good, but like not really, more towards the middle. I think they had a really good draft, to be honest with you. And Emeka Ibuka, huge fan of him, leading wide receiver in a lot of categories at Ohio State. Benjamin Morrison, great pickup. Jacob Parrish, great pickup. David Walker, great pickup. Elijah Roberts, good. Actually, I would say their fourth and fifth round picks are good. And Tez Johnson, Bo Nick's brother. I wish the Broncos would have drafted him, but you know what? It is what it is. Love the Ibuka pick. Love the Morrison pick. Yeah, great job, Tampa Bay. Tennessee, they got Cam Ward, obviously number one overall. Oluwafemi Oladejo, edge out of UCLA. Kevin Winston out of Penn State. Shamari Dike out of Florida. Gunnar Helm out of Texas. Alec Ayumanor out of Stanford. Jackson Slater out of Sac State. Marcus Harris out of Cal. And Khalil Mullings out of Michigan. Really good draft. Really, really good draft. They took advantage of where they needed to pick and made their moves. Cam Ward, great pick, could potentially be their franchise quarterback. However, I think he's probably about a 10 to 15 kind of guy. Yeah, I mean, I think that would be his ceiling. However, he could easily prove me wrong. I just think that we have a lot of good quarterback talent in the NFL right now and a lot of good young talent. So that's why I'm saying like 10 to 15. I just don't think he'll peak much over that. If he does, it might be like 8 or 9. But again, you can win without having a top 10 quarterback. It just is what it is. Oladejo, obviously, I honestly don't know too much about him. However, he's obviously pretty damn good. Kevin Winston Jr., a lot of Eagles fans wanted him, but really good pickup. Shamari Dike, not a bad wide receiver from Florida. Gunnar Helm, I think, is a terrific pickup right there. Alec Ayumanor went off for like over 200 yards on Travis Hunter. So awesome, very underrated wide receiver. Titans get a really solid draft. Commanders, after what they did last year, I feel like they kind of fell flat. Josh Connerly Jr., not a bad pickup, but also not like a world-breaking tackle. Trey Amos, pretty decent. Jalen Lane, pretty decent. Kalen Madrano, decent. And then Ja'Cory Krosky Moret out of Arizona, pretty decent. I just, a lot of Commanders fans are talking like, the Commanders had the best secondary in the league. Brother, AJ Brown just now has another target to bully. Like, we all know he bullies Commanders wide receivers. But yeah, that is going to do it for the draft breakdowns. I think the Browns and the Jags both won this year's draft easily. Philly is up there. I think the Titans are up there. Patriots are up there. I mean, there's a lot. There's good winners up there, and there's more guys that I think are a little bit more solid. I think certain teams won the picks where they took their players, primarily Philadelphia. But let's get in now to the next thing. On Monday, the Eagles took their White House visit. Now, I'm gonna try to knock it off onto a tangent with this because I already made almost a 10-minute long TikTok video about this. Obviously, a lot of Eagles fans were pitching a fit because Saquon Barkley was seen hanging out with President Donald Trump. Um, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with what he did, to be honest with you. Go play golf with the president. I really don't care. A lot of people are like, I'm sick of hearing you can respect the office kind of thing. It's like, no, you can respect the office. You might not, just because you can't respect the office because of who's in there doesn't mean that other people can't. Everyone has so many different ways of viewing it, and it's the closed-minded people that ruin it for a lot of us. And then a lot of people are against Jalen Hurts for not being there. Well, I could care less. I'm very much so the kind of person that's like, I could care less about the White House visit. I think it's unnecessary. It's stupid. I don't think that just because you win a championship, you need to go to the White House. It doesn't make much sense to me. Like, it just is what it is. I don't think that it's necessary whatsoever. So, you know what? Not bad at all. I mean, it's not I don't think what Barkley did is bad. I don't think what Jalen and the rest of the guys did was bad. It was the flavor of thing to bitch and complain about this week when it came to this. Everyone was already on their high horse over the Shador Sanders shit, and just focused on that. It's already blown over 2 days later, and anyone that's still talking about it in a crazy light, making videos, making posts about it, you're just holding on to it because you want to get engagement. That's it. You're just trying to engage with them at that point. But I'm going to brush past it. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Let's get the training camp. Let's get this fucking season started. I am ready for the 2025 season to begin now that the draft is over with, and I'm ready for us to defend our title. So let's get into my last point before we end off this episode is the fact that, of course, it wouldn't be the Eagles offseason without some jackass talking heads on WIP. If you guys don't know, that is the main radio station that does a lot of the sports talk shows during the day in the Philadelphia area. One of the jackasses on there decided to go out and say, I think this is a Jalen Hurts prove it year. Motherfucker, what else does my man's have to do? Like, he just went out. He just won the Super Bowl. He led us on a crazy playoff run where we scored the most points ever scored in a playoff run. Considering also we put up almost 50 points over the last 2 games of the year. He won Super Bowl MVP. He has outplayed Patrick Mahomes now on the biggest stage twice. This is what, like, there is a saying in Philadelphia. Nobody hates the Eagles more than Eagles media, and nobody hates Eagles media more than Eagles fans. Eagles fans don't hate their own players. We just expect a certain amount of competition and a certain level of play when our team is doing good. Eagles radio, however, will be like, the team could be flying high, but they'll be like, well, we can't pass worth a shit. Most of the time, the narratives you see are started because Eagles media is full of a bunch of fucking idiots, dude. And the problem is these radio stations in Philadelphia, this is why I don't listen to Eagles sports radio, because they're just a bunch of nothing but fucking ignorant ass old guys, or it's a bunch of fucking just clickbaity idiots that are on there. If they actually hired people that gave a shit about the teams, it would be a completely different story. And they probably wouldn't get the views that they do now because people are just chiming in to see, okay, what fucking stupid shit are they going to say today? That's why I like to keep things very neutral with all of this. I will say if a player is playing like shit, absolutely, dude, you fucking suck right now. What the hell's going on? Yada, 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 blase, 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 whatever. However, I am going to be the biggest defender of any player on the Eagles when we are doing well and our fucking sports media wants to try to rip our fucking team apart. That's where the whole AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts are having a rift. That's where that all started. Or AJ Brown doesn't want to be here. That's where that all started. Was from Eagles, our own media groups, and that's the worst part about it. So this is the thing with this. If you ever hear a report coming out of it about anything that has to do with Philly sports media, if it ever says anything like WIP or Jacob Sports or whatever the fuck, I implore you to not believe it, because most of the time it's fucking made up, or they're just talking about it to stir controversy because they know if nothing's going wrong, we don't have anything to talk about. And that's a big issue. Like right after the Super Bowl, when AJ Brown said he wasn't hungry, he wants to get back to work. He wasn't set like he didn't feel satisfied after the Super Bowl win. Yada yada yada. No, dude, what these players, what these guys don't understand, because half of them never touched a football field in their fucking life. Obviously, some of them did, and there is a section that has. And I respect the ones that have done it, but they can also be just as fucking bad. They're just as fucking emotional. They're just as big idiots. Some of them. However, a majority of the talking heads that are making the stupid fucking claims have never stepped foot on a football field once in their goddamn life. So they don't understand that the drive and the passion that an athlete has is competing, is dominating, is winning. So yes, AJ Brown, was it a little crazy that AJ Brown said after the Super Bowl win, I'm not satisfied? Yeah, but that I also understand, coming from a former athlete and coming from a competitor, that I know that, oh fuck, my season's over. And I want to get right fucking back at it again because I want to be beating the ass of somebody else. Like, that's what he meant. But no, everyone looks at it at face fucking value and runs with it. And that's what I fucking hate, dude. I hate Philly sports media so fucking much. And it's a good thing I don't listen to the radio. But anyways, guys, I think that is actually going to wrap up this episode. We're about an hour into this. And I'm about to call it because I'm just sitting here talking to myself in the camera. So I'm not about to be that kind of person when it comes to talking about this. Obviously, I'm not going to be like whatever the fuck his name is, Mr. In the Air for 4 minutes or whatever the fuck it happens to be. Or, congratulations on your first 10,000. We got to do at least 20, bro. Nah, bro, I'm not going to be like that. I'm over here, I'm reporting the news. I'm talking to you guys about subjects that I find interesting and sports topics that I find very interesting. And I'm just kind of reporting on the news once a week. We're going over a weekly recap of everything that happens, anything big that happens in sports. And with that being said, guys, go Birds. Make sure you like and subscribe. And I'm going to catch you guys in the next episode. See ya.